Awesome. Well, thank you both for being here. I'm Sharonique with TensorWave. And in case there's anyone who is not aware, TensorWave is a premier cloud service provider specializing in the AMD MI300X accelerators. So if you need some compute for your projects, make sure to look us up at tensorwave.com, and our team will be more than happy to help you out and see what you need for your project. So today is going to be an exciting conversation covering a few different topics. We have, as always, Kyle Bell, the Vice President of AI at TensorWave, and our special guest speaker today is Alex Lee, founder of Kazka AI, and we'll get into more about what that is. And we will be discussing the innovative work happening with that startup that he has and insights on the broader AI landscape. And a couple of news topics that we wanted to talk about um, that were interesting are the launch of ROCm 6.2, and we also have this autonomous dental implant surgery. So some wide variety of topics here, should be very interesting. But to get us started, Alex, if we can start with you, can you tell us a little bit about your background and how you got into AI and got started?
Yeah, happy to. Thanks so much for having me. It's great to be here. My name is Alex, and I'm the founder of Kazka AI. And really, we focus on helping small and medium businesses grow by adopting AI. We provide two main services, the first of which is thoughtful rollout of AI chat, like ChatGPT in the workplace, and the other is focusing on building custom AI solutions for these businesses. Coska means fairy tale in Ukrainian. My wife is Ukrainian. I'm half Russian, half Korean. So our kids are a blend of everything. And really, the name is inspired by our kids because when I was first researching generative AI technologies, I got to the point where I asked myself, how will my kids use this technology when they grow up? The answer is very clear to me, is that it's going to be in everything that they own and use and a lot of the experiences that they have in their phones, tailor or personalizing their education for them. They may even be speaking to AI peer companions on a daily basis, as scary as that may sound. And so at this point, I knew that I wanted to become a leader in this space and really help others to be able to adopt AI for themselves. I have 14 years of experience in a variety of different fields. I started as a business analyst in oil and gas. I went out to become an interactive producer in advertising. And for the last half of my career, I've been a product manager at Google, helping build hardware and software experiences using machine learning techniques applied to sensors like radar. I use all of this past experience to be able to help my partners today understand the pain points that we can address with generative AI and really unlock their businesses to grow.
Wow, sounds amazing. A lot of experience and insight that you bring to your current project as well. So, just one more further question on that. With all your experience and background there, what do you think is the most important thing that people should know or hear about AI from your perspective?
In my experience, I think the most important thing for them to know is that they can get started with AI today. And it's really very kind of quote unquote, I would say simple, where once they understand how the technology kind of works, they don't even need to truly understand it. All they have to do is just invite it into their everyday. And as soon as they start inviting it, especially for business leaders that I meet with, the more that they invite it to their everyday problems and experiences that they have, even if it's anything from helping them make a recipe to, hey, how do I get a template for a press release? The more they write it, the more they'll be able to understand it, its limitations, and where it can help them, and then begin to really apply it throughout their entire business to really kind of unlock some of the productivity gains that a lot of people are talking about.
Awesome. Great advice. Thank you for sharing that. That's amazing. And then Kyle, just briefly with you, I know you get to be on here every week. So just give us a little update on what you're currently working on, excited about, what's going on.
Yeah, still working on Inference solutions. I've been digging lately into basically supercharging RAG using long context, and then digging more into graph RAG applications. We're thinking that's probably an ideal vector index or document representation for long context. So, for instance, if you have context of 1,000,000 tokens, sure, we can pull a smaller code base, 700,000 tokens or 1,000,000 tokens. But you have the magnitude problem, right? That means there are definitely code bases far larger than that. Well, how can we pull the full context of this code base or a large collection of documents into that 1,000,000 tokens, right? Or even 128,000 tokens, right? There is benefits to sticking with smaller context. 1,000,000 is great if you're trying to get a very comprehensive view, but if I'm doing a single document extraction, 128 is more than enough. But yeah, GraphRag's kind of interesting. You're able to essentially build a hierarchical, essentially knowledge base of your data. There's like different levels of summaries that you can generate to essentially condense everything down into a much smaller context. So we're seeing where that goes. Microsoft's been publishing a lot of stuff lately. I think that's a big push they're going to be doing. But, companies like E4JS have been doing this for a minute.
Awesome. Great. Well, thanks for a little bit of update of what you're working on and kind of the breakdown of even still with the large context options, there are some good use cases for the smaller context as well. So we will shift back to you, Alex, a little bit with Coska or Fairy Tale, as you let us know. Could you share a little bit more about your mission with that and the specific challenges in AI that your company is aiming to solve?
Yeah, definitely. So our overarching mission is approachable, beneficial, and ethical AI for all. And it really drives a lot of our decision making in how we help businesses adopt AI. We're big believers in working collaboratively with an artificial intelligence, or what's referred to as co-intelligence, rather than using AI to kind of replace us in any way or form. And the specific challenges we focus on are first and foremost helping a business adopt AI chat in their workplace. I think a lot of businesses went through this experience where they just gave access to ChatGPT for their employees. Nobody really knew how to approach it or what to do with it. And we pride ourselves on establishing a process that really helps drive adoption. And so we help the business develop an AI policy. We tailor education materials, create a prompt book to get everyone started with, and deploy a support bot that actually uses RAG and all of the documentation that we create for them to allow any employee to ask any question, how to make AI a habit for them on their day-to-day basis. And then on the other side of, on the more advanced side of things, we help them build these more custom AI solutions. And I love to hear that TensorWave is focusing on GraphRag, and that's a place where I've been also very interested in and being able to provide more robust chatbot experiences and that are leveraged by our businesses.
Awesome. That sounds super practical. I like the breakdown of some of the things that you would provide for clients to get them started too. So can you tell me if there are specific industries or sectors that you're focusing on?
Yeah, our first kind of main industry that we're focusing on is actually agencies, whether they're creative agencies or somehow working with other services that they may provide. And the main reason for that is I have a background in this space. I'm very familiar with it. I know how they work in and out. But a big portion of that is the way that they value productivity. One of the big things that generative AI can unlock in the business, or even just AI chat, is productivity. And for agencies, productivity translates to bottom line savings. So for every hour of work that they save, that's money back for their bottom line. And really, productivity means something different for everybody. We're hoping to expand to more industries like nonprofits and education as well, where in education, productivity is the difference between a teacher going home at 4:30 and a teacher staying up late to create a lesson plan and continue grading at night. I'm a big believer that generative AI will be able to help make everyone more productive so that they can find better work-life balance and better grow their business.
Yeah, awesome. Very good. So there are a lot of AI businesses and based things out there. So can you tell me what makes Costa stand out in this crowded landscape currently? Any unique things about what you're offering?
Yeah, I think the thing that helps us stand out the most is our focus on empathy, and we empathize everything from the how people understand AI today. And so we spend a lot of focus and effort on just education and helping people understand how the technology works from a large language model or image generation, and then being able to walk them through how to make it a habit. And we also pride ourselves on being able to empathize with the leadership and individual contributors and managers to really unearth the pain points that are most specific to their business and can be actually solved with generative AI technologies. I think when AI is kind of like your hammer, everything looks like a nail. So we really pride ourselves on our process to do user interviews, do tool data and processes audit, and really identify and define the core problem to solve first prior to just going and starting building solutions.
Awesome. So you've touched on it a little bit. Could you get into a little bit more of examples, like specific examples of how your solutions are being applied with your clients in these real world scenarios?
Yeah, for sure. So one simple one is working with a creative agency. They have photographers on staff. They have to create proposals all the time. We create a proposal generator that's grounded in all of their expertise and in their tone and voice. So that's just one small example where they can now answer a few quick questions or even upload a client brief to ChatGPT, to the custom GPT we build for them, and get a full proposal out that's kind of 70% of the way there that they just have to quickly edit. And now they are almost done with that kind of the written portion of the proposal. A lot of the photographers I talk with, they're like, we're photographers, you're not writers. And this was actually their biggest pain point, was the writing part, where they're spending more than half their time on writing when they should be focusing on curating that collection of photography that will help inspire their client to go with them. Um, so that's one example. Another one is we build what I like to call Ask Bots, and these are leveraging RAG technologies or a RAG approach to help internal employees get answers quicker and help subject matter experts get their time back. So an example of this is Ask HR, where you can ground a chatbot that has all the standard operating procedures, all the kind of HR information that a business has, and then deploy it where the employees are. This is another big kind of fundamental principle we have, is to bring the technology to the team. So, for example, if the team is operating in Slack, then we deploy the bots in Slack in channels that they're using already. Like we can create an Ask HR channel where a person from HR is there and the rest of the company can hop in, ask any question of that Ask HR bot, and 80% of the questions will get answered immediately. The HR person doesn't have to take away their attention to answer that question. And there is something new, they can hop in at any time. So these types of productivity gains we're hoping to save time. We are saving time like hourly, or like 4 or 5 hours a week for the HR person, and the rest of the team gets answers immediately.
Awesome. Well, I definitely can personally relate to the first one that you mentioned. The other project that I have is media services, which is like photo, video, podcasting studios. And yeah, one of our biggest pain points is definitely the proposals. Like we know what we're doing, but to present it in a way that's going to be appealing and like the right information for the client is one of the most time consuming and sometimes frustrating parts of the process.
Yeah, 100%. Another thing we actually focus on is helping agencies and media groups actually run like mini focus groups on their own work so that they get feedback before they ever go back to the client. So to that very point that you're talking about is, how do we know if this is going to address things, or how do we know if it's going to resonate with people? You can instruct the chatbot, whether it's ChatGPT or Claude, to pretend like it's a focus group, and it'll give you feedback in real time. And it's actually pretty actionable. There's an agency that's like their core differentiator in the world of agencies is that they have their own proprietary focus group technology, but you can replicate it at a quicker level just using ChatGPT.
Oh, awesome. That actually brought up a question for me. If companies are putting all of their information to answer these questions and proposals and all that stuff, is there any type of security issues or concerns that they should have of that information being accessed by other people?
Yes, 100%. When we work with a company and we deploy the AI policy, we always dedicate a section in helping everybody understand what is appropriate use, how do you keep the data private. We roll out systems that keep data siloed. So, for example, if you're using ChatGPT for Teams, we turn off any sharing with other companies. When we work through Microsoft, for example, and we roll out a Copilot instance, there it's already grounded or it's already using Microsoft Graph to be able to know what you have access to or don't have access to, and helping everybody understand what the proper way to approach data privacy is of utmost importance. It'll vary by scenario, but we always make sure to outline it as clearly as possible for anyone.
Yeah, awesome. And I know, Kyle, I haven't addressed you specifically or asked any questions, but anytime you want to jump in or feedback you have on the project that Alex is talking about, we'd love to hear from you on some of this too. For sure.
Yeah, of course. We see that a lot too. A lot of potential customers come to us, and what's very important to them is data privacy, right? They don't want to necessarily send their data to a third-party service or OpenAI or Google. So the idea of being able to basically reserve your own hardware and then run your very own instance that no one else has access to, there's no multi-tenancy or any of those issues, is very important for some of them.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have another question for you, Alex, on your project. There's constantly new updates and new AI, new LLMs, new things being put out. How are you able to leverage those or incorporate and position yourself in relationship to these advancements that are coming out so that you don't end up getting left behind?
Yeah, great question. What I always communicate to all of our partners is that the AI we have today is the dumbest AI we will ever have. And in order to be able to be prepared for the future, I actually spend a lot of time working with my partners in their data operations and understanding where they're housing their data, how it's being accessed, by who it's being accessed, how are you operationalizing that data, how is it being updated, what are the services that are accessing it. And once you're able to get your data operations ducks in a row, you're in a much better place to be able to pivot to newer technologies that roll out. I think a lot of services pride themselves on being able to switch large language models at the click of a button, right? Do you want to go from 4.0 to 3.5 Sonnet? It's your choice, right? You can pick and choose what works best for your business and for your use case. And so by focusing on data operations, that is one big step in helping future-proof yourself and being aware that every new advancement that comes out is going to be better. And like Kyle was saying earlier, exploring alternative paths to like even fine-tuning and starting with RAG to begin with, that's always a much better, like I'm a big fan of that because it's a much more scalable approach and it prepares you better for the future. Whereas if you're fine-tuning, you kind of get stuck with a particular model or a particular version, and then when something new comes out, you have to retrain it. So that's been the general ethos that we've been communicating with our partners.
Yeah, I'd have to second that too. Yeah, fine-tuning a model is not a moat. It doesn't future-proof your product. The LLM, in a sense, is just the beating heart of your system, but it's a heart you can continuously transplant. So, yeah, building out proper agentic systems, frankly, better data flow for your data, that will be more future-proof, right?
Yeah. I like that analogy of the heart because I always told my partners that their data is their brain. So I might take that from you in the future.
Oh, by all means.
Nice. Awesome. So what are the future plans for Coska? What do you have in mind currently? I know obviously you have to be making adjustments and changes with the changing and updated technology, but what things are already in the works that you want to make available with your services?
Yeah, I think from a custom solution point, we're really researching and developing how we can bring agentic systems to smaller players. Um, I think we saw a huge advancement in being able to deploy RAG at very kind of low effort, low scale to low to the medium scale. And now looking at how agentic systems can really automate how a business operates. We have a belief that in the future, that it should be possible for a business with 10 to 20 employees to be doing 10 to $20 million revenue. And that's really through a focus of productivity and working co-intelligently alongside agents that will really kind of help your business grow without needing extra manpower to do it.
Awesome. Very exciting. Well, looking forward to seeing that progress and maybe benefiting from it. Sounds like I already like some of the services you're offering.
Yeah,
Awesome. Yeah, great. So let's switch gears just a little bit and dive into some of the latest news topics that are going on currently. Just a few that I picked out that I thought could be fun for us. There was an article that discussed the world's first successful autonomous dental implant surgery performed by a robot. So, this was a significant milestone in AI and robotics joining together within the healthcare industry. So, this whole procedure was actually carried out without human intervention, showing the potential of AI in super complex medical procedures. So, Kyle, this might be a familiar topic for you since we've been talking about robotics and AI in a few of our past conversations, but this is a super tangible example of what that can mean when we were talking about certain examples. I hadn't necessarily thought of a dentist, so this was interesting. So I'll start with you, Kyle, on this. Given the breakthrough in this autonomous surgery, how do you think the future is going to go for AI in critical fields, even beyond healthcare? What other industries could adopt something like this?
Yeah, well, let's kind of analyze this for a second. Teleoperation isn't brand new, right? We've been able to perform robotic surgeries, I'd say for at least a decade, probably a bit longer. Since those have hit the mainstream, and frankly, it's hard to talk to someone who hasn't had a robotic surgery done these days. Getting a micro incisions, there's just a lot of benefits to it. Ever since they started doing those, they have been collecting data, right? So every time you are performing one of these surgeries as a health specialist, you are essentially generating training data for AI systems that don't yet exist.
Wow,
right?
I hadn't thought of it that way.
Oh, and it's we can take that same analogy to self-driving cars, right? So far before the AI systems existed, or even the compute power to do this kind of computation on the edge, we have been collecting data and building the annotation data sets to train these future models. Google's CAPTCHA system was literally designed to annotate self-driving car data. They sell it as a way to capture bots, but if you ever wonder why it's always asking you where the stop sign is, or highlight the squares with the motorcycle in it. So that was a clever way of basically tackling two birds with one stone, selling it as an anti-bot product, but actually getting invaluable annotation feedback
Wow.
at a massive scale.
See, we've always teased about how we were helping it and training it, but I didn't know that was a real fact.
Oh yeah. So that's the interesting thing. So industries collect the training data 10 years before, frankly, the actual technology exists to get this to fruition. Now, self-driving cars, well, I was able to take a number of robotic taxi rides in SF the other week or other month with Waymo, and I was incredibly impressed. I'd say the technology is the 99% case has been solved, at least for point to point in a downtown system. Nonetheless, for that to really get like a nationwide rollout, they have to really nail that last 1% edge case with self-driving. So self-driving is happening right now as well. Now, if we're looking at, let's say, future domains, we say agriculture will probably start seeing more automation. Obviously, we've already seen versions of that, right? The second they invented the tractor, that was a form of automating the ox cart. You have the automatic hay baler that saved massive amounts of manual labor. But then we get to the point where you don't need a human operating these heavy equipment. So I see probably a lot more automation in terms of drones or even smaller agricultural equipment to do the same amount of work, right? If I don't need a human on the machine, I might have a small team of essentially tractors or agricultural equipment doing the same job. I've kind of seen that with lawnmowers, right? You're seeing drones basically created little lawnmower drones that can mow a single, like 2 acres on a single charge. And I was actually just teasing my grandparents. I was going to buy them 5 of those, and they never have to mow again. They just have them operate independently.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah. What about
it's
you, Oh, sorry.
yeah. Oh no.
Yes, Alex, any thoughts on the future of AI and robotics coming together? And first, any comments on the dentistry, and then any thoughts on where that could lead?
Yeah, I think I'm pretty excited by it. I've always been kind of pro autonomous driving. I truly believe once it gets to a point where it's going to help us or get to a point where it's good enough to be deployed across a ton of different scenarios, that it will be better than having humans drive everywhere. And I think there might be a future where surgeries might be best done by robots instead of human. At least you eliminate a lot of variance. So if like even a highly skilled doctor can have a bad day, right? Maybe they drink too much coffee and they're extra jittery during this procedure, right? Or they're too tired because they were up too late last night, kids or something, right? Having kind of, again, this a co-intelligent use of robotics, I think, is really exciting. In some other areas where, to build on kind of what Kyle was saying, there could be even in places like 3PL or logistics, third-party logistics or fulfillment. I think that's another field where robotics can really, really help. And even in industries like construction, perhaps, or in fulfillment of deliveries, really. So a lot of exciting places.
Yeah, that reminds me, I was just talking about like in big cities, we've been in some high rises lately, and it would be so much safer if there was little AI drones that could clean the windows instead of humans having to be out there in those dangerous positions. All right. So Kyle, back to you from more of an AI development perspective. What kind of data and training would be necessary to kind of make more advancement in a robot's precision and reliability in these surgical procedures? You talked a little bit about how we've gotten there and how it was humans performing it via the robotics, but what kind of training on the AI side would help getting better and better here?
Yeah, so I think it really comes down to volume. If I'm building a robotic surgeon, I don't think my main goal, if I was being pragmatic, is to automate all surgeries. The goal is probably to automate the most common surgeries. And that works well because the most common surgeries I'm going to have a lot more data on those, right? So if you're doing a simple tooth extraction, for instance, I may have many more patients coming through. It's 2 birds, 1 stone again, right? Not only do I have the most data on common surgeries, I'm going to be able to utilize it the most on these surgeries. So the goal is to really automate that 80% case, in my opinion. And you see that across other industries too. Customer service, for instance, they'll often break their support down into different levels, L1, L2, for instance. So if you can answer 80% of questions, the most commonly asked questions, and then route the last 20%, which are more edge case or harder to answer to actual humans, frankly, you've accomplished the business task, which is to save money. Now going from 80% automated to 100% automated, that's only saving you an additional 20%. While, that'd be a great thing to do, has a lot of risk because that last 20% is the hardest to automate. So yeah, I think it's going to be a fantastic future. You go into the doctor's office, you have a routine surgery, you could probably get it done that day by a robot. Now, if there's a follow-up for a more complex case, then you would probably go see an actual physician. Now, I would say this physician would probably still want to operate through teleoperation and through robots. And you can continue basically creating these training data sets for these edge cases. And then eventually you'd start automating more and more of those processes. But for cases where you don't have as much training data, I think that's where you really want to kind of have augmented intelligence, right? You would just make a smarter teleoperation bot, right? So this might do certain parts of the operation that it has strong confidence in, but then kind of rely on the surgeon on parts of the operation that it is not as experienced in, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And that being said, it could still help with movements. It could be, we call semi-automated, right? So the doctor could essentially be guiding the robot. And I think this is kind of how teleoperation already works, right? They have motion dampeners and all that. So if I twitch my finger, it's not going to, slice the patient. But eventually, it's really just the doctor guiding the robot through the more complex surgeries. And then eventually, the goal would be to fully automate those as well.
Wow, fascinating. You laid such a clear roadmap that I can actually see that progression, and that seems completely logical, and I think that's how the future is going to go. Good job, Kyle. So both of you, Alex and Kyle, I'm sorry, Alex, did you have something to add?
Oh, no, sorry.
Okay, I just didn't want to miss you there. So both of you are in the tech fields, you're comfortable with it and experienced with it, but how do you think the average patient is going to be reacting to the idea of robots performing surgeries on them? At least initially, that's not as common currently. And just how do you think people are going to react to that option becoming more and more available? Alex, start with you.
Sure. Yeah, I think it's going to vary by kind of the demographic, right? And I think we've already seen a lot of research be done in how older generations are much more wary, even of interacting with chatbots. And so when it gets to something as private and sensitive as surgery, I think that it's going to be a very mixed reaction at first. I think it'll be some of the younger generations, some of the more kind of more forward-thinking folks that will probably be more excited by it. And it's going to take a lot of time, and the roadmap, the approach that Kyle laid out is a very thoughtful one. I think with that type of approach, you can really help raise awareness and education as you go through that process of coming with the most common ones and then understanding how every single surgery can inform future rollout and automation. But it's going to be a mixed bag that's going to require a lot of kind of thoughtful disclosure to everybody.
Yeah, I think initially people will be very apprehensive. I think that was definitely the reaction when they first rolled out teleoperative robots. I think the driving force behind any consumer, though, and it's debatable whether or not someone seeking surgery is a consumer, right? This is something that they have to get done, or they may not have a choice, right? And that certainly can drive adoption as well. It's like when I go to the grocery store and there's only self-checkout lanes. I don't really have a choice here. I have to do self-checkout. But my philosophy on consumerism is people are driven by convenience, right? And convenience can mean a number of things. That can mean availability. That can mean cost, ease of use, right? User experience. But yeah, I think when people start having the option to have a robotic surgery done, and it's going to be cheaper than a human surgeon, it's going to be more available, and frankly, less chance of complication, I think people will quickly, choose that option. I'm going to make the same prediction on Waymo and self-driving cars too. I know a lot of people have said they will never get in a self-driving car.
Yep.
Here's my prediction. When self-driving cars hit mainstream and they are half the cost of an Uber and they are much easier to get access to, all those people will be using Waymo. So
Absolutely. Great. Awesome, you guys. Thank you so much for sharing that. One last question, or not one last, but another question I have on this is, with the advancement of autonomous AI in healthcare, what ethical considerations do you think are important to consider? Especially as when they're not having this human oversight. So we need to make sure that there's some sort of governance there. Alex, start with you on this one again.
Yeah, sure. So I think one of the most important things is really understanding the amount of training data that has been collected to be able to accommodate all walks of life. As we all very well know, the human body comes in various shapes, sizes, skin tones, and making sure that when you go fully autonomous on something, that you are able to cover the whole gamut of kind of different body sizes, um, and then be able to also at the same time be data privacy and data forward of kind of how you collect that data, what data is being collected, how are you using that data, clearly explaining that to every single patient and explaining to them all of the fail safes that might come with the fully autonomous system, how in what scenarios will it turn off, in what scenarios does it go back to human assisted, and being able to again drive that awareness, education, and disclosure. I think that's very important. It's kind of the ethical rollout of how any autonomous system is brought to market.
Yeah. And Kyle, any thoughts on, as TensorWave provides cloud infrastructure for these AI projects, what specific challenges do you see in the infrastructure side of things with the rise of autonomous AI systems like these doctors, surgeons, etc.?
I think it would be a vast amount of data, right? This wouldn't be, this isn't text, NLP, natural language processing, right? You are dealing with video stream data. So obviously you could try to compress that and, get away with less compute. But when you're talking about a human patient under the table or on the table, you need that as accurate as possible. So dealing with vast amounts of not just video data, but sensor data. Where was the robotic arm in relation to the video data, right? And I said it's multimodal, not in a media sense, but sensor sense. You need to get that as accurate as possible. So vast amounts of training, in my opinion. And then to deploy the model, it would be probably negligent to simply access a model over the internet, right? Many things can go wrong, especially if you're doing a stream and you have latency issues, etc. However, I still think this would be a hybrid approach, right? You would probably have a model that's local, doing main operation stuff like that. I would still augment that with a far more powerful model, essentially in the cloud, to basically get redundant feedback on the video, right? So the goal there is to essentially verify certain aspects of what it's seeing with a much more powerful model to determine if that is a confident action it should be taking. And then obviously if the robot ever is not confident in taking an action, and perhaps you've discovered an edge case, perhaps someone has a deformity that hasn't been trained on, then it is paramount that system goes back to the surgeon that is overseeing the operation.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, let's move on to our next topic. This one is close to home for us. It's about Andy's launch of ROCm 6.2, which introduced FP8 support and enhancements in AI training and inferencing capabilities. These are aimed at improving the performance and efficiency of AI workloads. So we love that, particularly for large-scale models. Kyle, maybe as you're familiar with these improvements, they're relatively new, but can you break down a high-level overview of what it brings and what you're excited about with this advancement and this new update?
Yeah, if you look at the actual release notes, it is a massive laundry list of optimizations. But in a nutshell, I would say probably the single biggest feature they're adding is FP8 support for VLLM. So that allows you to have the precision when you're running inference, which can vastly speed up performance.
Awesome, which we love that. Everyone wants things faster and faster.
Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. So given the advancements in the hardware and software that are coming out, how can especially TensorWave collaborate with AI developers like Coska and other ones that we've spoken to ensure that they can fully utilize these new capabilities that are available?
Yeah, I think the goal currently is to make it more accessible. AMD is a different form of compute than, let's say, NVIDIA, right? A different ecosystem of libraries, frameworks. So the goal is to kind of eliminate friction and make it more accessible. In that sense, if we're talking inference, for instance, we want to be able to make a bit of an inference service that can be easily deployed, and that'll handle things on the metal, right? So that's going to handle model replica configuration, that can handle load balancing, all these other aspects. So which inference engine are you even using? But the goal is to kind of separate the end user from the metal. That way they can get, let's say, access to an API, and they can just treat it as agnostic compute. Because we see more and more people aren't, oh, I want to use NVIDIA or I want to use AMD. It's, no, I need compute. They don't really care where they're getting it, but they also don't want to deal with the headaches of dealing with first-party libraries. So abstracting that out into a simpler and more easily to use product is important.
Awesome. And then with this 6.2's focus on enhanced AI training and inferencing, what do you see as the future of these processes? How are they going to evolve, get better? And how will this affect companies like Coska and TensorWave? And how can we maybe even shape those advancements? Alex, if you have any comment on that?
Yeah, sure. I think it's exciting, kind of building off the last point Kyle was saying of just a lot of people just need compute, right? And reducing the barrier to entry of getting access to that compute, but then layering on some of these more kind of performant parameters on it and making it faster, making it more highly performant is really exciting. And from our point of view, having a variety of options to work with and be able to build solutions that focus on solving a pain point rather than being tied to a particular technology is really important. So we're excited to see more access and more options and be able to solve problems in more thoughtful ways.
Absolutely. And Kyle, how do you foresee the infrastructure of TensorWave evolving to support the demands of AI companies as we make these advancements more and more?
So it's an interesting thing. We're going to see models get cheaper to run, right? You're going to see better quantization, which means I can get more petaflops when training my model. At the same time, the demand for better and better models increases. So this isn't, oh, people need less compute. It's more compute is available, which means they want to build better models, which require more compute. So at least on our side, we'll always see a demand for more infrastructure, right? So we need to build more data centers to keep up with all of this. However, I also think it's important to not just treat compute as like the old mythical man hour, right? It's like, oh, we just have this many servers, we can run this process. There's multiple aspects to infrastructure that's important, right? At TensorWave, we're really focused on what can we do with the increased memory of the MI300X. And there's some novel use cases we're finding that we can execute with that we couldn't invent with the H100, for instance. So it's not just, oh, treat it as raw compute. It's, okay, how do we bring flash memory into this mix? How do we bring VRAM? How do we bring better bandwidth? Frankly, you start looking into like 3D topologies when training your model, right? To make pipeline parallelism more efficient. How do we really scale this out into these massive, 100,000 GPU clusters like Elon Musk is trying to build? So it's constantly evolving.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much both for joining and for your really interesting contributions to the conversations and topics that we had today. We are wrapping up now, but if I could just get closing thoughts from each one of you, any last thing you want to share or impart with anyone that's listening. Alex, if we start with you on that.
Yeah, sure. I think closing thought is we're in a very exciting time. I think a lot of people, there's still a lot of hype out there. I'm a big believer that we haven't fulfilled that hype, and with advancements like we see from AMD's launch of ROCm 6.2 and all across the industry, I think one day soon we'll be able to fulfill the hype of AI and really be able to advance productivity, unlock more creativity, and people can get started today. Start inviting generative AI technologies into your everyday, start using ChatGPT, start using Claude, and start to understand how it can make you a more efficient, more productive person.
Absolutely. And then on these closing remarks, could you share with everyone where they can find you and Coska if they want to look more into your services?
Yes, you can find us at Coska.ai. Sorry about the background. That's KAZKA.ai. And you can go ahead and reach out to me directly from there.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And Kyle, any closing thoughts from you today?
Yeah, so obviously most business leaders are looking at how to operationalize their data for their current business need. But always keep a keen eye on your data and try to figure out what could be done with this data tomorrow, right? 10 years from now. What sort of AI could exist in the future that I could start building training data sets for today? And I think that's quite on theme with the discussions we've been having.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for joining and for sharing that. And also, for anyone that's listening, if you want to get more information on TensorWave or join us for our next Tensor Talks, follow us here on X at TensorWave Cloud and LinkedIn at TensorWave, or visit us online at tensorwave.com. Thank you all so much, and we will talk again next week. Have a great day.
You too.
Thank you.
Bye.